to you.
Yeah,
Um,
it can be very confusing. So, what will be some kind of warning signs for people to pick up on? How do you know that you may be dealing with a narcissist?
how do you know? Well, most of the time when you're just starting a relationship with them, they come on very strong, very charismatic, very perfect for you. They want you to think that you're amazing, that you were meant to be together, that you're soulmates, that, they want to meet your family right away. They want to be business partners right away. Where have you been all my life? Let's get to the next level. They want to get locked in as quickly as possible. Once they're locked in, then they get to the breathe. I would say it was almost like they were holding their breath, and then once they lock you in, then they can exhale, and that's when you'll start to see the red flags. Well, then it's, why are you texting me 40 times a day? And why are you so needy? You'll get your money when you get it. And, that's when you start to see the problems with them almost immediately.
Mhm.
Projection, deflection, lying and denying is what I call it.
Yeah. So, where
And
did this dark side come from? Is it from a sense of entitlement?
they have a sense of entitlement, but that's a symptom, not the genesis of it all. The genesis of it all is actually the etiology, if you will, is really more from trauma in childhood. And the trauma in childhood is actually, what happened was that during childhood, they were exposed to what happens to all of us when we are exposed to stress on a regular and continuous basis, or any kind of stress at any time, is that our sympathetic nervous system causes our brains to emit hormones, chemicals into our system, which is adrenaline and cortisol. And when that happens on a regular basis, then it can cause damage into the brain. And when it happens with children, then it causes arrested development in the limbic system part of the brain. And so while their prefrontal cortex part of the brain continues to develop, the limbic system part of the brain does not. And so it actually causes a a disconnect between the development of the prefrontal cortex part of the brain, which is the thinking and judgment part of the brain. So while they can grow up and do other types of things and be fine, the limbic system part of the brain, that emotional regulation part of the brain, does not continue to develop the way that it should. And there's also a memory part of the brain in that limbic system. So what happens is when they are presented with situations that cause them to feel triggered, so that, and it doesn't necessarily have to be rational or reasonable to the rest of the world. It probably isn't actually. What happens is it could be verbal or nonverbal, but when they feel triggered, such, like it could be an eye roll, it could be a slight of any kind, it could be a tone of voice, it could be where they feel like somebody has slighted them in some way. It could be a perceived loss of control. It could be that they're going to be exposed in some way. Anything. I always say that narcissists hear tones like dogs hear whistles. That there's no tone, they hear tone. That then that limbic system part of their brain becomes triggered. And when the other thing is with narcissists, they have a part of them, their personality, called splitting, which is that they see things in black and white. So everything for them is either, you're either for them or against them. It's good or bad. It's like that. And so what happens is when that part of their brain becomes triggered, then you're that limbic system part of their brain now is dominant and takes over. And now you're interacting with that. You're no longer interacting with rational. You're no longer interacting with reasonable. You're interacting with that. And that's what's taken over. And when that happens, you cannot negotiate with them and you cannot communicate with them in the same way that you can anybody else or a rational and reasonable person. I mean, you just literally can't. And the scary thing is that when you are dealing with them like that, then you are, they will take themselves